So I would like now to welcome my next guest into the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Megan Smith with the House of Hope CDC has had a very busy day, so I appreciate your being able to come into studio here.
Very nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming in. So you were in court this morning. Now I did want to bring folks up to speed. Megan was involved with the protest several weeks ago in Cranston, and this was in reaction to the mayor's road safety ordinance, which a lot of folks had said addresses specifically panhandling. Got a citation, got a court date, showed up at court today, and dismissed.
Correct.
So talk with us a little bit, maybe let's go back to the beginning. The decision, especially from your standpoint, why did you want to be involved with this and sort of make this sort of public statement, knowing full well that you were going to have to go through all these legal machinations?
Sure, so if it's okay to take even a step back from there.
Yep.
Myself and a group of advocates have been involved on the issue of panhandling for many years because we've recognized it as part of the pervasive trend of the criminalization of poverty and homelessness, and we've been involved in getting the city of Providence to cease enforcement of its panhandling ordinance, and in getting in being involved in the ACLU suit that ultimately led to the halt to the enforcement of the old road safety ordinance in Cranston. And so we were very dismayed when the council reintroduced an amendment to that legislation, which we think is completely, not only, it's first of all, it's unconstitutional, it also is just poor policy, because rather than focusing on ways to meaningfully address homelessness, it's just about pushing the problem out of sight and out of mind and hurting people in the process. So we were at all the council hearings trying to, through the legislative process, get the city councilmen to reconsider this legislation. They ultimately voted on partisan lines in favor of it. And so we, as you say, step forward and put ourselves on the line.
Put yourselves on the line. So tell us how that day transpired. Were you nervous? Were you like, oh, what's going to happen when the police show up? So you decided to test the limits of what the council had basically approved.
Exactly, yes. And realizing that we have the luxury of being in a place of privilege compared to folks who are facing homelessness, for whom being further legal involved or legal involved would have really big consequences for their daily life. So among our group, I'm a social worker by trade, we have a lawyer, we have a reverend, we had a lot of folks from a lot of different backgrounds, several Cranston residents there. And exactly that, the idea was to sort of force the city's hand. And we knew going in that there'd probably be one of two outcomes, either what ultimately happened, which is that we would be cited, or that we would be ignored, which would set up the argument that this law really is being enforced against people who look certain ways rather than across the board. And so we did end up getting tickets, and we ended up getting kind of two flavors of tickets. We got the tickets that were heard today, which are actually not about panhandling per se. They're state tickets for the pedestrians on freeways ordinance, which was a clear misapplication because it's meant to apply to roads like 95 and Route 10 that don't have pedestrian access. We were on New London Avenue where there are the crosswalks. Everyone walks in and out of Garden City. So there's clearly an attempt to get rid of those of us who weren't passing things in and out of car windows, which is what the new Cranston ordinance actually illegalizes.
So were you surprised that you got that citation? Did you think that, because as you said, you figured it was not applicable, and as the judge decided today it was not applicable, were you surprised when you got that particular citation, and then we'll go on to the next one?
Sure. So frankly, we were more bemused by it than anything. I certainly wasn't worried about it. But it just further demonstrated that the intent was really to shut down dialogue on this issue, to not have, again, substantive conversation about what visible poverty means for us as a society.
And so the second citation, where do things stand with that?
So our second citation, which is in fact the city citation, we have a court date in Cranston Municipal Court on June 6th, and we will of course be pleading not guilty to that one as well.
So how long did it last this morning? What did the judge say? Again, as you said, you thought this was a false argument to begin with. How did the judge address the folks? Were you addressed en masse, or is it person by person by person?
The first defendant was brought up, and then the cases were quickly joined because we all have the same counsel. And the judge was very receptive to the argument that this was a misapplication of the ordinance, and he actually denied a motion to amend the charges to jaywalking as opposed to being pedestrians in a freeway.
So did you get a jaywalking ticket?
No.
Because you were in a crosswalk.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The city said they may refile jaywalking tickets against us. The clear argument is show us the proof.
I was going to say, how can you do it after the fact?
Right.
But you need the photo proof, or
right. And there certainly were press there were undercovers there. So there's certainly photo documentation, but to my knowledge, no one jaywalked or broke any laws for that matter.
Were you surprised that the city took that approach after today and hearing what the judge had to say?
No, because again, it goes back to the city of Cranston clearly has a deep-seated issue with visible poverty, and again, rather than looking at how we can invest in housing and supportive services and reintegrate folks who are experiencing homelessness into the community, they're really about forcing it underground, and that's been kind of a pervasive theme throughout.
So now you're going to approach that next court date, again, dealing specifically with the public safety ordinance in Cranston. So that might be sort of the bigger hurdle. I mean, is that really going to be the litmus test for the applicability of this ordinance?
I think it will be a very interesting data point. I don't think it will be the end-all, be-all.
Okay. And that's exactly why you did this. You wanted to test the court system. Have you heard from anyone in Cranston, dealing with various folks in the community who, again, you showed up this particular day, had this kind of protest, if you will, but have you heard from folks who have been impacted by this ordinance?
Absolutely, yes. My day job is as an outreach worker with the House of Hope, so I am connected with a lot of the folks who the generic term is fly signs, who panhandle as a means of survival. So absolutely, I know folks who are personally impacted by this issue, and this ban on panhandling means that they're not able to raise money to meet their basic needs, not able to get medicine, get food. For the folks who are sort of holding barely onto housing, it means not being able to make rent or make utilities. And so that's what motivates us, is that it really, well, to the outsider, to some middle class folks, it just seems like, it's an $85 ticket for something that, nobody has to do. That's sort of the public perception, really, for folks who are experiencing homelessness and who are otherwise very poor.
And an $85 ticket,
right,
to someone who's panhandling,
right,
is a big amount of money.
It's an absurdity. I mean, you look at folks who either have no income or have, a society level income, which is, $700 and change a month. And just the sheer stupidity on its face of charging someone a fine for trying to raise money to survive is just, it defeats common sense.
So that took, you've said you've got your task at hand with the House of Hope. You were in court this morning doing press this afternoon. But when you go back to the House of Hope, and it's not just dealing with the specific Cranston public safety ordinance, what do you want to share with folks who might not know as much about the House of Hope as you would hope they do, and let them know what you're working on and what needs to be done?
Sure, absolutely. So the House of Hope as a whole is a nonprofit organization that does a whole range of housing and supportive services, everything from development of affordable housing for families to permanent supportive housing for individuals who have experienced homelessness and long-term disability to transitional shelter, and the program that I manage, which is the outreach program. And I work with a team of wonderful people who are out on the streets every day engaging with the most amazing people out there, which are people who are experiencing homelessness, particularly street homelessness. And I would invite anyone who has any question about our need as a society to address homelessness much more meaningfully than criminalizing people who panhandle, to join us on outreach, to talk with us about what we do, to come out and hear from the folks who are actually panhandling for survival, because as much as I love standing here and talking with you and others about this issue, I don't do justice to the lived experience of people who are out there. So the more opportunity people can take to actually speak with folks who are flying signs, to speak with people who are experiencing homelessness about the whys and hows of what they do, I think the more we'll be able to have an informed conversation about this issue.
Flying signs, I mean, that's the terminology is,
yes.
That's what folks use for, as you said, doing the actual panhandling is the flying signs. So again, you sort of crossed this first hurdle today with the reaction to the protest that you had, and there's still one more. And what's the court date again?
June 6th.
June 6th. You got it marked in your calendar, like big circle around it. Court date. Don't schedule coffee for this morning. Right, I will be in court. Well, I appreciate your coming in because folks were curious as to what would happen after this protest. Today was, again, just the first part that was dismissed, looking, again, now specifically at the Cranston Public Safety Ordinance to see if it's upheld or to see how the judge reacts in June and that court date there. So, Megan Smith, I appreciate your coming in today.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. I'll let you go around the corner, and I'll probably welcome my last guest around the corner in here. Okay, well, that was Megan Smith with the House of Hope CDC. Now, this was, again, today in a court date that the folks who had protested Cranston's road safety ordinance. Now, this was the very controversial ordinance that was passed by the city council that prohibits the distribution of goods or services between a vehicle and someone standing alongside the road. Now, as she mentioned, the court date today was specifically for a citation that they were issued by the state saying that they were on public roadways. And again, the judge dismissed it because this was not, in fact, applicable, and as Megan mentioned, was in a crosswalk. But the real big one actually comes now, as she mentioned, in June, the specific public safety citation for, again, this road ordinance, because they were testing it out. Again, some folks were just standing there with signs, some were handing things between cars. Again, they wanted to see the applicability of this. So this was sort of round one. We're going to continue to keep tabs and see what round two looks like as both a community, a legal battle. The mayor is very much in favor from a public safety standpoint. And as you heard from Megan, a lot of opposition in the community trying to address folks who are addressing homelessness. So I appreciate Megan coming in today to talk about this